Welcome to Journey to Joy Live, a podcast to promote wellness, resilience, and inspire joy. Be empowered to balance your mental, physical, financial, aspirational, and social health while providing mental health awareness and breaking down the stigma of mental illness in the Black community. I'm your host, Dr. If Joy, and I'm here to help you transform life's challenges into opportunities for joy. Let's begin the journey together. Hello, we are in episode 127. Can't sleep, can't cope. How sleep impacts your joy. Because we do know sleep is very important. It impacts your joy, your mental health, all the things. And tonight I have special guest, Dr. Angela Holliday-Bell. She's a board certified physician and certified sleep specialist. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Tell us more about what you do and how you got into it.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I'm a certified clinical sleep specialist. I work with individuals, groups, and actually organizations and corporations to
Ooh.
help them through their sleep struggles. So, with individuals and groups, I mostly take them through something called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. So, to treat their
Oh.
chronic insomnia issues. And
Uh-huh.
then with corporations and organizations, I educate their workforce on the importance of sleep and how that impacts how they perform at work and how they show up as their best self, not only in the workplace, but also at home. So I do a little bit of a mix of things.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, because that's definitely what I wish for all of my patients to have. Because most people come to a psychiatrist or their PCP or anybody rather, looking for help with their sleep.
Mhm.
And a lot of the doctors just kind of throw a medication at them. And I get a lot of patients, even older patients, on antipsychotics just for sleep. And that is just my pet peeve for sure, because it obviously can worsen lots of different things, diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, all those things. So CBTI, tell us more about that.
Yeah. So it is the number one recommended treatment actually for chronic insomnia. And so what a lot of people don't realize is once you reach the point of chronic insomnia, it is more than just the I have trouble sleeping, quick fix type of situation.
Yeah.
Usually there are maladaptive thoughts and then subsequent behaviors that have built up over time that have led to these sleep problems and contribute to them persisting. And so it often is a process in
Mhm.
healing those sleep issues. And really, it's about reestablishing a healthy relationship with sleep. Because once you get to that
Mm.
point, there's just this toxic dysregulation surrounding sleep. And that really starts with your mental, your cognition, and then the behavior surrounding that. And so
Mhm.
I think, first of all, I would say, as far as doctors go, me being a doctor myself, we don't actually get a lot of education on sleep. And sleep is a deep topic. When people
It
come in
is
and say I have sleep issues, there are so many things that
so
contribute to
much.
that. And so in a short office visit, usually the patient wants a quick fix. A doctor is like, I don't really know what to do. Let me just, throw the thing at you. And so I understand where it comes from, but typically not going to be the answer. You really want to do the deep work to
The
heal
work.
your relationship surrounding sleep in a way that's going to lead to lasting results. And that really is where CBTI comes in.
And how long is CBTI? Are they committing 8 weeks, 12 weeks, forever?
Yeah, so it really depends on the severity of the sleep issues and how the client or patient themselves are sticking, how they are sticking with the routine and the habits that are
Yeah.
recommended within CBTI. I've seen as short as a few weeks make a significant difference. For
Yeah.
some, I would say on average 6 to 8 weeks. But honestly, sleep is going to be a lifelong kind of process, right? So
Yeah.
you're always plugging back into the techniques and the things that you're learning
Mhm.
to keep your sleep on track. I was a former insomniac. I actually took myself through CBTI.
Mm.
And I will say that I definitely still engage in a lot of the practices that I learned in order to prevent relapse, or during times where I am struggling with sleep here and there. I have to, re-engage and be a little stricter about my schedule and use the tools that I learned to make sure my sleep stays on track.
Yeah, well, thank you for being vulnerable and letting us know that, you too experienced it, and it's also helpful to know that you went through CBTI. It obviously works, and you continue to use the techniques. So how long did you use the program for, or did you actively do CBTI?
So for me, it took around 8 weeks.
Okay.
It was a little bit of a modified situation because I was
Mhm.
actually in residency when my chronic
Mm.
insomnia really started. I had some issues in, like, medical school, but when it was, like, severe, it was during residency.
Yeah.
Working up to 80 hours a week, and so, things were a little bit tricky, but even in that situation, I was able to make the changes necessary to get my sleep back on track and at least make the most out of the sleep I was able to get,
Mhm.
and I consistently use those things, stimulus control, all of those things, of course, sleep hygiene, to make sure that I
Yeah.
in a good spot. But I would say it was a solid, like, 8 weeks of really locking in, honing in on fixing my sleep.
That's really good because you said you were in residency, and, a lot of people are well, most people aren't doing 80 hours like residents, but there are a lot of people who are working a lot,
A
whether
lot.
fulfilled or not. So it's good to know that you can actually go through a therapy that can help you sleep, and really the only issue isn't that, "Oh, well, maybe you should just work less." A lot of people can't just work less. They can't,
Exactly.
especially in residency.
Yeah. My schedule was not in my control whatsoever, so I focused on controlling the things that I could control and really prioritizing my sleep, and that meant my sleep need is 9 hours. I'm very proud about this. I say aloud and proud. I know that I need 9 hours of sleep. I was not able to get 9 hours of sleep a lot
Yeah.
of the time during residency, but if it was a solid, consistent 7 hours, that was better than broken,
For
8
sure.
hours or whatever, so I really focused on maximizing the time I could sleep and prioritizing my sleep even within a crazy, chaotic schedule.
For sure, and people totally underestimate how deep, sleep affects our mental health. Can you explain what really is happening in our brain when we don't get enough rest and why that leads to mood changes such as anxiety and burnout?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, during sleep, our emotional control center is communicating with all of the regulatory systems in our body. So, that's
Mhm,
when all those connections are being made and strengthened. Our frontal executive processing, executive thinking skills really is sensitive to sleep and sleep loss. So, very important processes are happening when you're sleeping. On the, other side, though, when you're not sleeping, you lose the time for those very important regulatory processes to take place, so you simply just have less control over your emotions. You
mhm,
actually resort to a more primitive state where you really value instant gratification. It's harder to think through things, your reactions. So, people know how you may feel after a night of really bad sleep. You're more on edge. You're more likely
mhm,
like you're kinda teetering that line all the time, and that's because you lose that control that you need when you're managing your emotions because your amygdala or the center of emotional control is hyperreactive in a
mhm.
state of insufficient sleep. And there's kind of this chicken and egg concept where we know that
Yeah,
there's a significant, well-documented bidirectional relationship between mental health disorders and sleep and then vice versa.
for
A
sure.
lot of symptoms of mental health disorders are sleep issues, whether that's hypersomnia, sleeping too much, or insomnia, not sleeping enough. And then we definitely know that problem sleeping can also worsen those things. But it's very well documented and it makes sense when you think about all of the regulatory processes that are happening in your emotional control centers while you're sleeping at night.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, you said that well. I mean, as you were talking, I'm thinking about like a toddler, right? Or a kid. I don't
Yes.
know if you
Oh,
had kids, but one of the things we're taught to think about, especially when it's a baby and they can't tell us they're tired, is like, okay, are you tired? Are you hungry? Did you just poop? Do I need to change you? And because it's common that you're going to be irritable when you're tired, and that happens with adults too. Maybe you're
exactly.
not crying and having a fit. Some of us do, but it's displayed as irritability in some level, even with adults.
100%. You actually hit the nail on the head. I will often use that as an example because for kids and toddlers, their frontal lobe is still developing, right? So they are a lot more sensitive to sleep loss and they need more sleep.
Mhm.
So I always make the example of like a 2-year-old who throws a tantrum and they're just so irritable and crying, and you're like, oh, they need a nap, right? Why?
Mhm.
Know that because they have now lost control over
Yeah.
those emotions and their ability to regulate their emotions because of that need for sleep, and adults are the same way. Like you said, we may not throw a tantrum in the kitchen, sometimes we do, but if we're not getting enough sleep, we still are vulnerable to that loss of emotional control and regulation, just like, a 2-year-old toddler who needs a nap.
And that's where that self-awareness comes in. It's just like looking at yourself, thinking about your thoughts and your feelings and your triggers, and it's like, "Is it just that I need some sleep?"
Exactly.
So we really need to look at ourselves. So we were talking earlier about that 80-hour workday, and a lot of times we glorify busyness. I mean, I've heard motivational speakers say, "Oh yeah, 3 hours of sleep, yeah," and then you just be successful, and sacrificing sleep productivity. So what's the mental and emotional cost of that, and how can we begin to kind of reframe rest as a form of self care and not as rather than laziness?
Yeah, it's such a significant cost, and I think that we are seeing the ramifications of that now, of that hustle culture, "I'll sleep when I die." I always say that good sleep is not just about what you do at night, it's about living your best life during the day, right? So I
Mm,
care about how you feel during the day. If you're hustling and always pushing through and you're exhausted and you're on edge, is that really success? I define success as having enough energy and motivation and mental clarity to do what I love and be present in the
enjoy it.
process and enjoy my family. And I do have a child, enjoy my son, like being able to be present in those moments and not
Mhm.
feeling like I'm always pushing through. That is my definition of success. And I
Yeah.
can do it better when I'm well rested than when I'm pushing through and sacrificing sleep in order to do so. So it really does start with that mindset shift for
Mhm.
people. Like I said, I work with a lot of corporations and high achievers and leaders. But what I try to get people to understand is that you're actually more efficient and better at what you do during the day if you're sleeping better at night. It makes no sense to sacrifice sleep and stay up longer and do all these things because you're just doing it worse in the first
Yeah.
place. So if you dedicate time to prioritizing your sleep, you're gonna be better at what you do during the day. You're gonna get it done in a quicker amount of time, and that leaves you more time to sleep. So you really have to start with sleep in mind, and everything else you will
Mhm.
actually
Yeah, and for those who say they'll sleep when they die, you're gonna die sooner.
unfortunately, yes, we have seen that it is more likely to lead to an earlier grave if you are not really prioritizing your sleep.
Yeah, so, I get a lot of patients who they have racing thoughts at night, the anxiety at bedtime. What are some realistic steps to start improving their sleep, even if they can't overhaul their entire routine overnight? Gonna take some
Yeah. So
time.
first of all, I want people to understand that it's not about shutting off your thoughts. So oftentimes
Good.
people ask me, I just can't turn my brain off at night. I try to turn it off, it won't turn off. It's unrealistic to try to turn off your brain. A
Yeah.
natural sleep process actually within a natural sleep process, I say there are lots of random thoughts and imagery that goes through your mind and your brain as you're drifting off to sleep. Your brain doesn't just shut off. Um,
Yeah.
Also, we know that when you're sleeping, particularly during REM sleep, your brain is actually super active. So it's not about shutting your brain off, but it's about shifting your thoughts to something that's more neutral and less activating. Oftentimes, taking the pressure off of having to shut everything off can help in the process of falling asleep. So, you really just want to give your brain a distraction, some distracting, neutral things to think about. So,
Love
there's
it.
a technique called cognitive shuffle, where
Mm.
you think of a word, let's say tiger, and then you think of as many words for each letter of that word as possible. So, for T, you
Oh,
think of time, whatever, and you try to imagine it. And once you run out of things, you go to IGER. It's not that there's something magical about that, but now it gives your brain something very
distraction.
neutral to think about, but it takes enough effort that it's still not allowing other thoughts to creep in until you're able to fall asleep. And it's that randomness that actually mimics our natural thought processes as we're falling asleep. The other thing though is if you're someone who has like worries or to-dos that are popping through your head and you're constantly thinking about, okay, I have
Mhm, mhm.
tomorrow, this going on. I recommend a brain dump or a worry diary is another
Uh-huh. Yep.
separate from bedtime, though. So a lot of people who have heard of this are like, "Yeah, right before bed, do my bedtime routine, I just write down all the things I'm worried about." But then that can cause you to go to bed worrying about those
Get
things
worried.
more because now you've connected that to your bedtime. So, like, after
Mm,
dinner or after work is a perfect
gotcha.
time to do that separate from your bedtime, but allow yourself the chance to process thoughts that you didn't get a chance to during the day, which is what your
Mhm.
brain is trying to do as you fall asleep at night. And that way, you have the thoughts out of your head. It's separate from your bedtime,
That's
and
good.
you're more likely to think about, like I said, neutral thoughts that don't impact your sleep as much.
I love it, and the cognitive shuffling, I was like, "Well, that's a more advanced way of counting sheeps, that's for sure." So
Yeah, and it works. So what we found is counting sheep is too easy, right? So you can think about sheep being 1, 2, 3, and in the back of your mind,
makes
you're like 1, 2, 3, got that project coming up, 4, 5, 6, gotta do the laundry 7, 8, because it doesn't really take much effort to do that. So you can do that while
just
those
counting.
going, you're just counting. But
Yeah.
by doing something that takes just enough mental effort that you don't allow those other thoughts to creep in, that really is a trick. Like it has to take some effort, but be neutral. It's not stimulating. It's just you're not allowing other thoughts to creep in as you're doing.
Yeah, that's good, and I hear, a lot of professionals say sleep is only for sleep. The bed is only for sex and sleep, and so is that pretty much similar what you say? Because like, if you equate it to, like, I'm doing my work in my bed, I'm doing other things in my bed, it's kinda, like, difficult to go to sleep and separate that this is sleep.
100%. So that is the stimulus control aspect of CBTI. Your bed
Mm.
is for sleep and sex only because what I say is you dilute the relationship between your bed and sleep by doing things in your bed other than sleeping. When you're working or eating or talking on the phone or
Yeah.
scrolling through social media, when you get into bed, your brain is like, okay, should I send some digestive enzymes because this is where we eat, or should we go ahead and get a little anxious because this is where we
Mm.
work, or it confuses your brain about what to do. So you
Mhm.
want to make it so easy that your brain is like, oh, I know. Oh, we're in bed. Okay, it's time to go to sleep. It's sending that melatonin, those sleepy cues, because you trained yourself in your brain that this is what happens in this space.
Exactly. So what you were saying, earlier about the cognitive shuffling and, I'm blanking on the second technique, but do you wake up when you wake up in the middle of the night? Because there's a lot of people who wake up 1 a.m., they wake up 2 a.m., 3 multiple times a night. Do you continually do that same technique? Oh, the journaling, that's what you said, the brain
Mhm.
dumping. But so, you know, that you wouldn't do the brain dumping in the middle of the night based on what you said, but the cognitive, shuffling, would that work for middle of the night waking?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So, the biggest thing for middle of the night wakings is to normalize them to some extent. So, people have this misconception that you're supposed to go to sleep and never ever wake up. You go to sleep and you don't wake up until the morning when your alarm goes off, and that's just not how we sleep. We cycle through sleep stages. So, we have lighter sleep to progressively deeper sleep, REM sleep, a brief awakening, lighter sleep into deeper sleep or whatever. If you
Mhm.
sleep on average 8 hours, we go through about 5 of those cycles through the night. So that
Wow.
means you potentially have an awakening 4 to 5 times a night. Now, most of us don't recall it. We may change positions and fluff our pillow, take the cover off or whatever, but we are up for a little while. So waking up in and of itself is not problematic. What's problematic is when we can't fall back asleep within a reasonable amount of time, reasonable being 15 to 20 minutes, actually. So what happens for some people is they have that brief awakening, they realize they're awake, and then they become activated because now they're stressed about the fact that
Yeah.
they're awake and I should be asleep and I should fall back to sleep instantly. And oh my gosh, I'm not. And I'm looking at the clock and that causes me anxiety and I'm stressed. And then it creates this cycle of what you're doing when you're awake. So understand that if you wake up, oh, it's still the middle of the night, my alarm hasn't gone off. It's normal to wake up. I will fall back asleep and taking off that pressure,
Yeah.
that cycle before it starts and help you to fall back.
Not worrying about you know what I could get some concerned about waking up in the middle of the night, because sometimes I work out at night. I'll get on the treadmill at 9, 10 o'clock, sometimes late, and that helps me sleep, but
Mhm.
I'll go straight to sleep after that, so it's not like I eat, right? So
Yeah.
then if I wake up to use the bathroom or I can't get back to sleep, now my body's like, "Oh, you're up, and now I'm hungry," and so now I'm too hungry, and now I can't go back to sleep, and
Mhm.
the last thing I wanna do is go and eat something in the middle of the night, so I don't do that. Usually, I'll get to sleep, but it could take about 45 minutes, so I know
Mhm.
that's a concern, for some people where they might get too hungry.
Yeah, and that's real. So hunger pains, drop in blood sugar can absolutely impact your sleep and cause you to wake up in the middle of the night. And so you're right. We want to have our largest meal dinner at least 3 to 4 hours before bedtime. We don't want our body to be too busy trying to digest our food to fall asleep. Digestion takes a lot of energy, and so
Yep.
that impacts your ability to fall asleep. With that being said, you also don't want to be too hungry as you're going to sleep. So a bedtime snack about an hour before bed that's high in healthy
Okay.
protein and complex carbs can
Nice.
actually help to maintain your blood sugar overnight and keep you satiated in a way that doesn't lead to the drops in blood sugar and hunger pains that may wake you up.
Nice. Do you have any go-to snacks? High protein, light snacks?
Yeah, yeah. So my go-to is a cup of Greek yogurt with some berries and nuts.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can see that working. So not chips and guac from Chipotle, because I did that I did that one time and I got sick. I was sick to my stomach. I was like, "Why did I do this?"
Yeah, you wanna keep it nice and light, something healthy that have that protein and the
Of
complex carbs
course.
and whatever that is for you. Of course, you don't wanna do anything that, like, if you're lactose intolerant, maybe, lactose-free yogurt or things like that, but you wanna keep
Yeah.
it light. You don't want it to be heavy, fatty, spicy, things that can lead to heartburn or anything like that.
Good. So let's talk about the sleep hygiene. There's different types of sleep hygiene depending on you. Of course, there's different types of sleep routine. I try to talk with my patients about that. A lot of patients are like, well, what is sleep hygiene? They don't even know. So, what is proper sleep hygiene? How does that relate to the sleep routine? And how does someone come up with one if they don't even have one?
Yeah. So sleep hygiene is like a set of rules, so to speak, that helps to set you up for healthy sleep. I always like people to know that it's kind of like the foundation
Hmm.
upon which healthy sleep is built on, but it's not going to be a fix if you have chronic insomnia. So if you have chronic insomnia, again, we're going back to those
Yeah.
thoughts and behaviors that we need to fix. But everyone should have good, healthy sleep hygiene. So that comes down to when you're waking up and going to sleep, trying to keep that as consistent as possible. The wake time actually being the most important thing. So it's
Mm.
more important that you wake up at the same time every day than it is that you go to bed at
Mm.
the same time every day. If I
Mm.
always tell people, you do nothing else. If there's just one thing you can change or start with your wake time. Keep that consistent
Wow.
every single day. The next is also what we mentioned about the bed for sleep and sex only. So it's a part of stimulus control, but also a part of sleep hygiene. It's the sleep environment that you're in. So keeping it dark because light is a strong signal to your circadian rhythm
Hmm.
that you want to be awake. So your space should be
Hmm.
completely blackout dark if possible. Noise, keeping it 100% quiet or have a consistent soothing sound like a white noise.
Yeah.
Changes in volume or tone of noise can lead you to either wake up in the middle of the night or cause you to remain in the lighter stages of sleep because your brain is like, something's changing in my environment. Let me stay a little bit alert in case I need to react. So you want to keep a consistent noise or completely quiet. You also want to keep it cool because your body temperature has to decrease in order to fall and stay asleep. So a cooler room temperature, 62 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit is what they say in research. And
62 to 68?
yeah, 62 to
Okay.
See, I am before I had a child and, I don't wanna freeze him, I was a 66 girl. I sleep at 66 overnight,
Yeah.
me my husband actually. It's a little warmer
Wow.
now that we have a baby, but what I say is for people who are like, "I live at 76 during the day, there's no way I can go that low."
Okay,
Just
that's too
bring it
high.
down 2 to 3
72.
degrees lower than the
Uh-huh.
day. You're at 76 during the day, make it 74 at night. So, that range is not for everyone, but according to research, that's
Oh
kind of
my gosh, okay.
possible range. And then lastly, having a bedtime routine. Something that you do that is going to help you transition from the day to the night that's consistent, soothing, relaxing. And so if people don't have these things, I just start with one thing and build on it. Don't feel like you need to overhaul your entire routine in one day because that's not likely to happen. Start with waking up at the same time every day. Once you get that
Yeah.
down as a habit, add on to the other ones and you'll build on the healthy sleep practice.
Oh, that's so good. So the sleep hygiene or the sleep routine is part of the sleep hygiene. So that's a good distinction. And you said it sounds like you have a baby, or how old is your
I
son?
do. He turned 7 months, 2 days ago.
Oh my goodness,
Yep,
that's a baby. So I
baby, baby.
have my 2 year is gonna be 3 next month. So 3, well, 2, 3, oh gosh, I can't even say it. He is 2, and then I have a 5-year-old and a 14-year-old, all boys.
Wow.
So this is a good segue into mommy sleep because and
Mhm.
you can if you wanna share your experience because obviously having a baby and you mentioned, like different noises and lights and you're gonna sleep with one eye open, like, "Okay, what's going on?" But you do that naturally as a mom. So,
Right.
what's the advice you give to a mom that has a baby or
Baby, so
toddlers?
this is what I'd say. So start with infancy, right? Because this is my first child and,
Uh-huh.
I had all the information that I could give pre-parenthood, and I was like, "I feel like you can still sleep well as a parent, but I can't say from experience, but I just feel like you can." And then I had my baby, and of course, I'm going into it very, very intentional
Mhm.
about what I would say is by the time my baby he was a couple days short of 4 months. We got him sleeping through the night. He sleeps 12 hours overnight, and I still get my 9 hours.
There it is.
And it was because of being very intentional.
Mhm.
What I think too is that, yes, you definitely have some of that hyper alertness and hyper awareness. Absolutely. I have a monitor that I'm sleeping next to.
Yeah.
He down, I'm waking up. However, it also starts with the mindset of parents feeling like because I'm a parent, that then means I won't be able to sleep. And you just accept that
Yeah.
life of sleeplessness because I'm a parent. Of course, I'm not going to sleep. Um, as opposed to, well, because I'm a parent, one, I need sleep even more, and be
Yeah,
a better
definitely.
parent if I do, and to be present and patient in all the things I need to do during the day as a mom and tackle all the millions of things that comes with motherhood, I need to
Mhm.
be well rested. And so it really started with
Mhm,
that mindset,
mhm.
like, you still deserve to sleep even though you're a parent. The
Yeah.
first months, it's survival mode. When the baby is needing to wake up and eat every 2 hours, you gotta do what you gotta do. Like, that just is what it is. If you have a partner you can split duties with, that's helpful. So that's something me and my husband did. So we at least got 4-hour chunks. But there are also things you can do even in that time to get more sleep. When your baby wakes up in the middle of the night, not turning on the lights, not scrolling through social media while you're feeding,
Yeah.
doing things that make it
Yeah.
harder for you to fall back asleep. We turned on red light, we handle business, we're feeding, and then he's going back down and I was going
Mm.
back to sleep. So I still even maximize my sleep then. And
Mm.
once I was able to teach him healthy, independent sleep habits, I did that as soon as I was able to, and then I got back on my sleep routine. So it's possible. You
Yeah.
just believe it's possible, and then you have to be intentional about setting things up to make it happen.
That intentionality is real because when you get used to having a baby in the bed with you, and now it's like the baby's 18 months and they still in the bed with you, and you're just like, how do I get them back to the not back? They never been in the crib. How do I get them in the crib? And I know right away I said, no, 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 my sleep is important. And I never could have imagined waking up a few times or multiple times during the night. Of course, as a mom, you kind of get used to it. And I've definitely gotten used to be able to go back to sleep right away. But that whole cry it out method, I said, "I am going to do that." So, I don't care how long it's gonna take. So that's how that's how my 2 youngest were able to just stay, end up sleeping throughout the night is that I'm like, "You gonna be crying for 20 minutes," and the next night they were fine. I know
Yeah.
everybody doesn't work out that way, but I know some people are scared to do that, but you have
Yeah.
to be intentional about, trying to help your kids sleep so that you can get that sleep too.
Exactly. Honestly, that's why I did cry it out with my son. And, I'm a sleep specialist and I'm a pediatrician by training. And I always preach the cry it out method. What I would say is it was much
Good.
harder in practice than I thought it was gonna be. So to everyone out there, I get the difficulty. I still did it. I felt bad in watching him cry on the monitor, but I knew that it was gonna be better for him to sleep through the night and better for me and my husband to sleep through the night. And it literally took like 3 nights. Like he cried less and less each night. And then he was sleeping for 12 hours. And now he plays in his crib. He's happy being in there, but it was about me teaching him what to expect in the middle of the night. That's all it is. That's how we operate with our kids. We teach them what to expect when they cry, when we're going to feed them, what we let them play with. If my son was crying because he wanted to play with the socket, I'm going to just let him cry and not let him play with the socket because ultimately I know what's better for him on the other side. And so that's the way I think about sleep too. It's not hurting him, but it's teaching him what to expect. And now he has great healthy sleep habits.
Yeah, that's really good, that's really good. So what about if, that mom who or that child, that mom with a child, 'cause I'm not no blame on anybody, but the mom that does have a child who's 18 months, 2 years old, maybe 3 years old, either still sleeping in bed with them throughout the whole night, or maybe they do go to their bed, part of the night, but then they're coming in about midnight. How? It this crying out method work then? What are they doing?
Yeah, yeah. So it works at any point. The longer you wait, the more difficult it
Really?
may be,
Yeah,
but it does work. Now, it's gonna be more difficult once a child is mobile and they can just scurry those
open the
little
door.
feet back into your room. But what I say is no matter what, whether you're doing it, at 4 months like I did with my child or 18 months, there's gonna be a rough period. Like I knew that, okay, for a few nights it's gonna be rough, but after that, we're gonna be in a good spot. So you have to make a decision. This is how I'm gonna handle middle of the night wakings. If they come into my room, I'm gonna quietly walk them back into their room and say, "Nope, it's not morning time. You stay in your bed. Least interaction as possible. You literally walk them back as many times as it takes."
Mhm.
The thing is consistency. Because if on that 3rd walk back there, you're like, "We're gonna just stay in the bed." They're like, "Cool, 3 times is all I need, and mom's gonna let me stay in the bed." If you walk them back every single time, the next night, they're not gonna get up 6 times. They're like, "Dang, she gonna walk me back every single time." So you have to be
Mm.
consistent. Once they're old enough to understand rewards, like once they're 3, 4, make it a huge deal that they stayed in their night or in their bed overnight. So you get a sticker, you get a
Mhm.
toy episode. Oh my gosh, big boy, big girl, whatever.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
ultimately they really want that praise and positive reinforcement from you. So when they can understand that, make it a huge deal, just like with like potty training or whatever. It's all about habit building and
Yeah.
expectations. And then lastly, I would say once they're again, older, usually like 4 to 5, but even 3-year-olds sometimes can understand this. They also want some control, right? So they're little
Yeah.
tyrants at that age, and they wanna feel like they have control over things. So you can give them bedtime passes 2 bedtime passes. You can use this twice, right? So for the kids are like, I'm thirsty or I gotta use the bathroom. You have 2 passes that you can get out of the bed to do those things. But after the 2 passes, there's no more getting out of bed. Now they
Wow.
have some control. And oftentimes they don't even end up using the pass. They're like, well, if
Mm.
I use this pass, I'll maybe use it again. And then they
Yeah.
to sleep through the night and then they don't even need the passes anymore. So there are ways to
Good.
as they get older if you want it.
That's good, that's good. So, I actually used the little doorknob lock thing so
Mhm.
that for the five-year-old when he was younger, he would try to get out, and I'm like, "Oh," I didn't feel like getting up. I just rather you not bang on the door and then eventually go back to bed. And
Yeah.
the one that's 2 right now, he he actually didn't realize he can't even get up to go to the door. He'd be crying out still in the bed, not realizing he can get out the bed, and we just leave his door open, he won't even leave his room. But anyhow, are techniques like that okay? They exist, but as far as a physician, do you promote that, those little doorknob things?
They are totally fine. So I do recommend the ones like there's one called a monkey lock, and they can open the door, they can crack it, but they can't get out of it, and,
Mm.
it is better to have those where they kinda
Yeah,
have access, they can see out, but they can't get out because sometimes you do need those physical barriers to say, "No, you can't get out the room." Again, similar to a baby gate or whatever, you're denying
yeah,
access to certain parts of the house. So some people, like, when it comes to sleep, people get all, "Oh, you can't do that," but we set these boundaries and
that's
these
what yeah.
expectations all the time, all throughout the day and night. So
Mhm.
sleep shouldn't really be any different. So I think especially if you have a child that the walkbacks aren't helping or they're steady getting out, or you just want to keep them safe overnight, that's totally fine to do. I would just recommend the ones that they can kind of crack the door, but it won't let them open it completely.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So while we're still on the kids, because there's people watching who themselves they can't sleep, but then also the kids not sleeping, and that's why they're not sleeping. A lot of parents I've talked to, they might give their kids certain things like Benadryls, melatonin. I've even had parents, and maybe these are kids with chronic conditions too, but CBD oil and things like that. What's
Mhm.
your take on certain supplements that you are for or against or neutral on?
Yeah, so I would say, generally speaking, especially when it comes to kids, I am generally against any supplements for kids and adults, honestly, but definitely for kids.
Hmm.
Especially, so the go-to is usually melatonin. Kids produce a lot of melatonin. There rarely is it a problem of not enough melatonin.
Mhm.
Generally, it's going to be the structure and setting expectations of what's going to happen overnight. Simply,
Mhm.
it comes down to us. That's why I even like I treat adults mostly when it comes to sleep because kids sleep usually comes down to the adult. Like it really is about how we manage their sleep more
Yeah.
than the kid having an inherent sleep problem. The
Mhm.
asterisk to this is there is
Mhm.
some research to suggest that kids with ADHD and autism do have potentially some deficiency in melatonin, and
Gotcha.
certain melatonin supplements can be helpful in those conditions. But aside from that, kids are really not going to need supplements. Definitely don't recommend Benadryl for adults or children ever at all. I really would focus on the healthy habits or structures, the
Yeah.
expectations surrounding sleep rather than supplements.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's good. And what about diet? Diet and sleep. Is there something you did talk about making sure you don't eat about 3 to 4 hours before you go to sleep, which is definitely important. So that means if you're going to bed at 10, definitely don't eat after 6, and that's very healthy. But as far as actual things that you eat, are there certain diets that we should be looking at for to make our sleep healthier or to be able to sleep?
Yeah, yeah. So definitely, the typical healthy diet recommendations. So like green leafy vegetables,
Yeah.
legumes, those things are actually rich in magnesium. And magnesium is a
Mm.
very important mineral as it relates to sleep. That is that's why I say I usually don't recommend supplements. I love magnesium glycinate for sleep for adults and even for
Mhm.
children too. But it's because our diets tend to be not super rich in magnesium because it is the green leafy vegetables, legumes, and things that are rich in that. You also
Mm.
wanna make sure just like drops in blood sugar can impact your sleep, spikes in blood sugar can impact your sleep. So you don't wanna eat things that are really high in sugar right before
Yeah.
bed because those spikes and then the subsequent drop in cortisol can actually impact your sleep too. Again, the spicy fatty foods that can lead to some indigestion and heartburn. So, like, generally the healthy practices, but really focusing on those things that have minerals that are rich in magnesium that's helpful for sleep can be helpful, and then limiting things that can spike your blood sugar or lead to heartburn that can disrupt sleep.
So no pecan pie right before bed. That's what you're saying?
No.
I'm sorry, I had to throw out that cornbread dressing after the day after Thanksgiving because I was just eating way too much of it. So, yes. Well, what's you know what? Speaking of which, what's the itis about? Because if the itis makes you tired and wanna go to sleep, but you
Yeah,
also shouldn't be eating heavy before sleep, what's up with the
right.
itis?
But it's yes. So people have this misconception that itis, like, speaking of Thanksgiving, right? Since Thanksgiving was recent, like, oh, the turkey is what makes you sleepy. That's not really the case. So, as I mentioned, digestion is a very heavily energetic process, right? So, when you eat a lot of food, your body can divert so much energy to digesting that food that it can make you feel sleepy
Mm.
initially. But once that process is over, then it can lead to poor sleep after that. So, like a
Mm.
good nap after the itis is great, right? Like I'm tired, you get that post, that Thanksgiving, whatever
Mhm.
nap, but it's not great for sleeping overnight because that can impact the quality of your sleep. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that you're diverting energy so you feel tired, but then it's not going to lead to good quality.
Good. Okay, good one. All right. Well, since this show is all about joy, Journey to Joy Live, how does better sleep actually help us access more joy, clarity, and creativity in our daily lives?
I actually think it's the foundation of joy,
Mhm.
creativity, in your daily life because it really helps you to show up as your best self in every single facet of your being. When you think about all the mental functions that occur
Yeah.
overnight, as I mentioned, your mental clarity, your creativity, your motivation, how much you want to do things, your energy is all increased and improved after you've slept well. The joy and fullness of life is experienced at a higher level when you're well
Mhm.
rested, right? So I always tell people instead of thinking of sleep as the ending of your day, start thinking about it as the beginning of your tomorrow and who you
Ooh.
want to be and how you want to show up tomorrow. That really impacts who you are in every
Mhm.
role that you play. And so I say it's also a way to fill your own cup, right? Like, especially as a woman and as a mom, you're constantly pouring out to other people, to work, to your partner, to your children, and whatever. Sleep is how you fill your own cup so that you can be
Mhm.
better at all those things. So I think sleep is a foundation of not only health, but really living a happy, joyful, meaningful life where you get to
Yeah.
be present in all of life moments as opposed to just trying to get by.
Yeah, sleep is self-care, sleep is rest. You can't you need it for sure. And I know
Mhm.
I had a guest on here last year. She said, I asked her, "What's your self-care?" She said, "Oh, rest.
Yes.
Just sleep,
Oh,
sleep."
I love that.
For me, I always turn to running, but of course I make sure I sleep too.
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand, right? Like you're more likely to work out if you slept well. Sleeping well helps
Yeah.
you to get the most out of your workouts. It really just helps you to build on those healthy habits. But I truly feel that sleep is a foundation.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us about your journey, your personal journey to joy. What's that been like?
Yeah, so it's changed and ebbed and flowed throughout the
Mhm.
years. For me, I've always been on this mission to be a doctor and to be successful, and that
Yeah.
is really what I was chasing. And in that process, and suffering with chronic insomnia, I realized that I
Mm.
wanted the fulfillment of being present in these moments, of achieving these successes with all of my senses and being able to
Mhm.
be present in the moment. And I was missing that, especially when I wasn't getting rest
Mhm.
that I have a child who is the joy of my life that has shifted a little bit to be present with him in those
Yeah.
moments, soaking in all of the changes and the ways that he's growing and really being able to remember those things. And again, not just like surviving on a cup of coffee, but really being present in my
Mhm.
son's life and going on this journey with him. And so my joy has shifted and molded, but it's been amazing. And I
Yeah.
feel grateful to also contribute to other people being able to experience that for themselves through taking care of themselves with better rest.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on Journey to Joy Live and also being transparent, letting us know, hey, you're not perfect. You go through insomnia too, and being a mom as well at that. And so tell us where we can find you. Looks like there's the solution is sleep.
Yes, that's a
What's over there?
a perfect place to start. So that's my website. The Solution to Sleep is my company. All of my services are there. So if you want to find a way to connect with me, that'd be the best place to do it. I'm also on social media. I guess a major platform that I'm on is Instagram at the Sleep MD. So I try to provide tidbits of sometimes entertaining, valuable information, motivational information too, for you to understand that you deserve to rest and then to implement things to get there. So connecting with me on either one of those platforms will be perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Everybody's going to be listening to this and learning about sleep because sleep is literally the major complaint that I get as a psychiatrist, and I think most physicians do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for having me.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. This has been an Enjoy Life production. If you're in a crisis, don't hesitate. Call, text, or chat 988 for immediate support. Please note, this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional treatment. If you're looking for therapy or medication management through Enjoy Life, visit www.drenjoylife.com to request a consultation. I'm licensed in 12 states. I accept Aetna in Georgia, Florida, and Virginia. Be sure to grab your copy of the Enjoy Note to help you on your wellness journey. Also, check out Inspired Joy for the wife, mom, boss to help you balance it all without losing yourself. Better yet, get the full Joy bundle for just $45. Remember, Journey to Joy Live is every Thursday at 7 p.m. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, may you continue to transform stress into joy.